Join us for the latest episode of Strength Spotlight, streaming live on LinkedIn. This week, we delve into the critical topic of middle level leadership development. Our discussion will focus on two key areas. Number one, navigating the challenges and opportunities for mid level leaders. And number two, building resilience and driving impact as a mid level leader. Now, whether you are an inspiring leader or a seasoned professional, this episode promises to provide valuable insights and actionable strategies to enhance your leadership journey. We are excited to welcome two esteemed professionals from the HR and learning and development domain. Sarika Singh, welcome Sarika to the Strength Spotlight podcast. A very, very warm welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sarika is, just to give you a brief introduction of Sarika Singh, Sarika has over more than 2 decades of experience in IT and ITES, focusing on financial services, technology, and education. As an HR leader, she has delivered people oriented solutions while collaborating with CXOs across the UK, US, Europe, and APAC in various environments. Since August 2018, she has been head HR for British Council Management Services, developing best in class practices and achieving nearly zero attrition during the pandemic and great resignation. Previously, Sarika was country head HR at IHS Market, which is now S&P Global, contributing to its growth and successful IPO by establishing HR infrastructure and global talent programs. She has held many key positions at Birlasoft, CSC, and IBM. She is also a frequent speaker at forums like NASCOM. Sarika is passionate about well-being and community activities. At British Council, she has led CSR efforts for girl education and job-ready skills for disadvantaged girls across India. Once again, Sarika, a very warm welcome to this episode.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Sai.
Now, Abhishek, a warm welcome to you as well to this Strength Spotlight podcast. And just to, ladies and gentlemen, just to give you an introduction of Abhishek Joshi, Abhishek happens to be the founder of Strength Masters and a Gallup Global Strengths coach with an illustrious career and experience in learning and talent management. He has been instrumental in establishing strengths-based development and transformation practice in numerous organizations, ranging from large-scale companies to growth stage organizations. Okay. Now, as we dive into the conversation with Sarika and Abhishek, let's discuss how mid-level leaders can effectively navigate the challenges and opportunities in today's dynamic business landscape. So, without any further ado, dear LinkedIn leaders, let's get started with the first question, which is a common question to both you and both Sarika and Abhishek. I mean, anyone of you can take this. The question is, mid-level leaders are often caught between senior management and their teams. What are some of the biggest leadership challenges that they face today? So, anyone of you, Sarika, why don't you go first?
Thank you, Sai. I think it's a real life problem that most of our mid-level managers across organizations are facing today. So when I reflect back into my experience when I worked for IBM, Computer Sciences Corporation, and further with IHS Market, very profit centric and very commercial firm. And this I'm talking not just about India, but across the continent. So US or UK or APAC. Mid level people are the ones who are the bridge between what senior leadership wants to see in terms of goals, quarter on quarter, all those results. And they also have to ensure that their teams are really productive. At the same time, they don't burn out. And they're the real, people connect with their teams to ensure all this is happening seamlessly. And this is a difficult role to it's a very difficult role. If I see today's context, they are also multi-generational workforce rather than just multi-geography.
Absolutely.
And then you have an ever-changing business scenario with this huge technological shift. So
True.
it's something we have to really support the mid-level managers with. And I think there is a huge role that the organizational culture, the leadership team, the HR teams have to play together. And as we talk through, Sai, I'll be very happy to share how have I helped drive this change for the organization I've worked in, and also the different forums that I attend, whether it's NASCOM or others, to influence this happening across organizations and in the industry. Thank you.
Fantastic, Sarika. I mean, thank you so much. I guess we'll be eagerly looking forward to to hear your experiences and your strategies to overcome this. Abhishek, your take on that.
No, first of all, thank you, Sarika, for joining this panel. I'm really, really happy to have you here. Thanks, Sai, for organizing this. Good evening, everyone. So, the question that Sai asked was, what were some of the biggest leadership challenges middle-level leaders face today? I think, like Sarika said, that middle-level leaders are those leaders who are responsible for execution and strategy both. The first challenge that I've experienced in my interactions and in my career so far while working with 100 plus organizations and designing leadership development program for especially middle level leadership teams is the first challenge is that balancing expectation from senior management at the same time while supporting their teams. That's a classic challenge for middle level leaders. Second, they have very limited decision making authority. Amidst that, they have to drive execution and become successful. That's another challenge that I have experienced. Third is managing diverse team dynamics and making sure that their teams are engaged continuously with them, with the organization. They are aligned with organization mission, vision, purpose. And so that's something which another challenge that I've seen. Another challenge, which I would like to highlight here is uh, how do they navigate organizational change time to time that organization go through and manage uncertainty which is there. Every new business cycle brings new kind of challenges and brings new uncertainties. That's another challenge that I have. And the most important is that they have to do all that while handling day to day operational demands. So if you look at, these are typical challenges that I've experienced while working with middle level leaders, and I really really understand that this role is really challenging one where you have to manage the up and drive your team members and make sure execution happens. So that's my view side.
Thanks, Abhishek. Thanks for those valuable. So what I'm hearing from you and Sarika, a common thing, just for the benefit of the audience, is like the challenges faced by mid-level leaders is probably industry agnostic, and not just industry agnostic, but also the nature of business agnostic. Okay, I mean whether
Right.
I mean I stand corrected. I mean the challenges that were faced say 5 years before or 10 years before, and now and then probably going forward. If some of the challenges will actually cut across all these years. I mean they have been a common red thread, right? So that's what
Right.
that's what I heard from you, Sarika and Abhishek. Okay, now moving on to the next question. Sarika, this question is for you. From an HR perspective, what key leadership gaps do you observe in mid-level managers, and how can organizations support them in overcoming these gaps?
So, you know, getting into that mid-level management role, uh, first of all, we really appreciate all these people who have, from managing self and managing individual goals, moved ahead in that leadership hierarchy, if you see, and they become experienced managers managing others, right? So from managing self to managing others, and managing others to becoming a senior level leader, which is managing a business unit, or it's a large department, or there are multiple geographies. That's the stages we are talking through.
Right.
Now, when you are mid-level leader, you really need to understand, as I earlier said, what is the organization goal for that year? So short-term goal, and marrying it with the long-term goal of the organization, while ensuring that you're authentic with your people, you are really proactive in terms of clear communication. You are not just dependent on your technical competencies, but you have that people connect, you have that emotional intelligence, you have that risk taking appetite, where you will think out of box, and you'll be able to not always say yes in the room to agree with your seniors, but take a position which talks about and represents the team that you are leading. And this is something which doesn't come easily.
Hmm.
There are few superstars all of us have in the organization, they will get it easily. But if you really look at, I've seen US managers struggle quite a bit through that. And I don't want to name the organizations, but we had to really, in human resources, we had to design that program, which really talked about, how are you seamlessly uh, presenting an actual authentic picture to your leadership, which talks about people challenges, and
Right.
having that built up in terms of all the competencies, and also is this an achievable goal in this timeline, prioritization, customer feedback, taking the feedback and processing it in terms of action orientation. So I think there is a very, very good balance you require being a
Right.
successful mid-level leader, which talks about action orientation, result orientation, as well as risk taking and people management.
Right. Right.
Fantastic. And
Great.
that's where I guess, the people like you and Abhishek, from HR and you have a very, very critical role to play to not just curate, because this term has, curate you see, leadership interventions basis their requirement. Because I heard you saying from, to make a transition from leadership itself to the leadership at the team level, that requires a major, very, very major paradigm shift. That in fact, I've also seen my experience. I mean, it takes a lot. I mean, as an individual contributor, I may be a exceptional performer, but the moment uh, I'm given a team, so as far as self accountability is concerned, I may be right there. But the moment
Right.
it comes to holding the team members accountable, that is where probably some of the super achievers may make the transition very smooth, look very smooth, but the others they do struggle. So thank you so much, Sarika, for this. Abhishek, any quick thoughts on this?
Thanks a lot. I completely am aligned with Sarika's thought, and thanks for sharing this. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so HR can support with a lot of well-being initiatives, stress management. Also encouraging networking and stakeholder engagement. That is where HR can also encourage and support and bridge leadership gaps.
Fantastic. So networking and stakeholder management, I guess that's a very, very critical area wherein I felt extremely uncomfortable at at that back then anyway when I recall. But anyways, I was like, next question is to you. Okay, now, how can mid-level leaders leverage their strengths to build strong relationships across teams and departments?
Thanks, Sai. So, strength-based leadership, specifically, if you look at when people identify, especially middle-level leaders identify strengths, strengths has direct impact with their productivity and efficiency, and this is something which is documented and validated research by Gallup, where strength has directly impacted efficiency and productivity. It has maximized productivity and efficiency. So one is that once a middle level leader and their teams, when they understand the value of strengths, the alignment between team members, it becomes better, and that is a very critical element for driving execution. So many times you have talented people, very good competent skilled people, but because there is lack of alignment, not between the organization philosophy and the individual, but there is a lack of alignment between the middle level leader or any leader and their team. So understanding strengths, it helps align with task, and it ensures execution happens nicely. The another important point which I would like to highlight here is strength-based feedback. Teams who receive strength-based feedback are more productive as compared to teams who do not follow strength-based feedback system. So when I say strength-based feedback, I mean that, so let's say one of the key job of a manager is to engage in feedback discussions, and once you understand each other's strengths, it becomes very, very objective, because where your team member will need support and where the team member will not need support, and you can give a lot of freedom to that individual. So your feedback becomes very, very objective, and it actually enhances, once you start having those kind of dialogues, it enhances your team's morale, and their engagement with self and engagement with the leader goes up. At the same time, when you partner with colleagues and teammates who have complementary strengths, you are able to manage blind spots very nicely. And if you look at all these things, they have major impact in dealing with execution challenges, and it improves performance of a team very, very effectively. Yeah. So that's what I would like to say, Sai.
Fantastic, Abhishek. You spoke about execution and how strengths-based leadership plays a major role in execution. And I heard Sarika talking about that mid-level leaders should be proactive enough, or rather, they should be able to look at the bigger picture. They should be aligned with the larger vision and vision purpose of an organization, and that's where strategy comes. I guess this is I can clearly see a confluence between what Sarika said and Abhishek, what strength-based leadership brings onto the table. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sarika and Abhishek, uh, for this beautiful inputs and very, very intriguing, interesting perspectives. Now, The next question, which is coming your way, which is again a common question, and anybody can take that. What are the most important skills mid-level leaders should develop to accelerate their career growth and prepare for senior roles? Maybe a top one, two, three skills. I mean, so either of you.
Sarika.
Sure, I'll take that. I think it's also very important to have executive presence.
Hmm.
That's one. And second, communication.
Right.
It's very, very important to be able to communicate. You may be a very high achiever and very high productivity, very hard worker. But if you're not able to relay it back to the leadership, this is the effort your team has put in, you have led that, this is how we can do it better. And as I earlier said, it's also important to have your own view, your own analysis of things, not being a yes man in the room. That is not adequate to
Right.
Right.
be
Yeah.
active mid-level leader. And it also doesn't get you higher up. Plus,
Right.
thinking about that you should have all the answers in the room and I'll sound stupid if I ask this question. That is something you have to completely do away with, especially in current scenario.
Right.
This was relevant
Mm.
10 years back when I was also in my mid level. It's very much relevant today. And I can tell you, when we senior leaders talk about and talk in the boardroom, or we're doing talent and succession planning, those conversations about senior directors, this is one of the things that is really appreciated from business leaders as to how effectively the person, the manager, the mid-level manager can bring in the conversation to, this is how we can achieve this result in this timeline, and these can be the setbacks, and this is how we can mitigate. So there's a very high strength required in your problem solving ability, your decision making ability, your risk taking appetite, taking stretch goals. Because if you're always in that comfort zone, okay, this is given to me, I did it within the timeline, that is not adequate. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
As I said,
Mm.
the leadership pipeline it's narrow, right?
Right.
and,
It's
and
narrow.
similarly,
Right.
the
Right.
organization life cycle, as we all are competing, in the marketplace, even when it's a firm which is non-profit based, you're still competing. You're seeing what's happening. I don't want to bring politics in here, but you're seeing how the US is
Yeah.
we're having all those conversations of
Yeah. Correct.
efficiency and all that. Plus, as I said, there's a lot of extrinsic factors at play, which mid-level managers equally have a huge role to play in to support the senior leaders. So another very, very important thing is, how do you complement your senior leader?
Hmm.
Because he or she feels assured enough and involves you in that participative decision making, right? Because that's what people want. They don't want to busy all the time taking operational decisions. So you have to come forward and take the decision on behalf of your leader, and your leader trusts you, right?
Right.
Your team trusts you. So these aspects become very, very important while you're achieving all these goals. And if you see what I also talked about, there's a lot of soft aspects into all this, as
Right.
well as definitely hard aspects. You should understand the financial content. It's not a jargon that, what is the top line, what's the bottom line, how is my project contributing to all this. So whichever field you are, if it's banking, if it's education, if it's IT, you understand your business, right? Business acumen is very, very important. People aspect of it, and then the soft skills part of it, that look, I own it, don't worry, it's in my
Right.
hands, I might make mistakes. So that's where the culture of the organization equally has a huge role to play. Because if you're all the time criticizing people who are failing, then there is a huge
Yeah.
risk, a worse culture, where people are just into this very, very comfort zones, and they're not stepping ahead, which will not work well for the organization 3 years down the line. So some
Fantastic.
of these aspects, I just try to summarize. Say thanks.
No, no, great, great, great.
Thanks.
I think you summed it all, Sarika. You used executive presence, which actually, by and large, it sums it up. It sums it all. And I was, while you were speaking, I was just, trying to assimilate, because just before you, Abhishek, spoke about execution, and we all say that, this is the layer where strategy meets execution. But eventually, this is strictly my opinion. The expectations for mid-level leaders boils down to eventually execution. Okay, but the strategy part, as you rightly said, unless and until they are proactive, and their courage quotient actually goes up, if they also exhibit their skills and capabilities, that yes, we are there, then obviously the leadership, it has to be a two-way game. Okay, because the expectation is only from from the mid-level leaders. But if these guys, if they don't demonstrate that yes, we are equally capable, your senior leaders will not involve them in strategic decisions. So fantastic. I mean, I completely agree with you, Abhishek. Picking up, the thread from what she said, what is your take on that?
No, number one, executive presence. I also give number one, executive presence, because that is where I mean it matters quite a lot.
Exactly.
120%. Executive presence
Yeah.
is number one. Communication,
Yeah.
decision making is
True.
another aspect. And so, how do you take decisions? Because as a middle level leaders, your job is to take a lot of decisions. So if you look at, uh, uh, they may not take a lot of decisions related to strategy, but when it comes to execution and handling day-to-day operations, they have to take so many decisions on a regular basis. So their ability to take a call, irrespective of whether their decision is correct at times, it may go wrong, absolutely fine, but they should be able to have this skill and ability of taking decision, and that will happen once they are self-aware, once they know about who they are, what works for them, and they invest consciously in understanding who they are. So that's something which is pretty important. Another aspect is like deep understanding of business metrics. Like Sarika talked about business acumen, and like not just business acumen as from a content point of view, but deep understanding of business metrics. And because that is not just required for them to drive execution, but also drive team, understand that okay, what changes are required in team, because they're also responsible for building capability of their team. If I look at a middle level leader's job, it revolves primarily around four things. They have to do role modeling, and so there are certain skills which are required, like executive presence definitely helps in role modeling. Then the second aspect is expectation setting. So how do I set goals effectively? That's something which they should know. Third is reviewing and feedback, the skill to review work and give feedback. And fourth is coaching. This is a four-dimensional role that they have to play on a daily basis. So any skill set around which complements these dimensions are something which will help them prepare for career growth and prepare for senior roles.
Great, Abhishek. I thank you so much. Key points that you said, decision making, self awareness. I particularly, this aspect of self awareness intrigued me, because if I'm aware of my own self, okay, my capabilities, my strengths, probably then I'll be able to leverage, I'll be able to capitalize on them. And second, what you said, what also I liked is you said business metrics. Now, business metrics is just not in terms of the numbers. Of course, that's very critical, and that's what is the major expectation from them, but also from you see, looking at the larger picture. Okay, so great. Thank you so much, Abhishek, for bringing that. Now, another question is, which is again common to Sarika, you and Abhishek both. How can mid-level leaders bring a very strong personal brand, which is, I think, to some extent, it's also Sarika, you spoke about executive presence, strong personal brand within their organization to position themselves for future leadership roles. Now, yes, is there anything else which can be topped up with existing executive presence, so to be able to achieve your personal branding? So anyone can take first. Sarika, either you or Abhishek, please. I'll leave it to you.
No, I'm happy to take it, and definitely it's very important what you're asking, Sai. So, another thing to understand for mid-level leaders, which a point I've been covering, I'm saying be very happy in the role that you've got of being a mid-level manager. You're a leader by yourself in your own space. At the same time, what has got you here won't get you ahead.
Yeah.
It's very important to acknowledge that. It's something which Abhishek talked about, you're talking about, Sai. So, what I have seen some of the high performing mid level managers doing is taking stretch goals by themselves, taking stretch assignments on their own without somebody asking for it. This is something I'm giving it to you. They will say, hey, can I meet you? And it's like elevator pitch really works. You are meeting one of the CXOs in the lift lobby, or maybe in the cafeteria. You introduce yourself and you say, this is something I heard you talking in the last town hall. And this is the expertise I have, and I have a team which I work with. So this is what I think is, can be done. And it's very much doable, in this sort of space. Any leader appreciates this. So some of those competencies which And because you are genuinely interested, in terms of driving that result consistently, meeting your goals definitely it's a given that you are already meeting your given goals, and you have result orientation and action orientation, and you are known in your space. Now beyond that, this is something which is like, take a stretch assignment, go and give elevator pitch, take those projects because you are aware of the big picture, and this is how this can shape up in the next 2 years or 3 years, and 5 years in these days is a very, very broad and long timeline, which I would not wait for. So this works, and at the same time, don't forget about the people who you are leading, because I think one of you mentioned about it, role modeling. And in today's world, or even 10 years back, this was very much relevant. If I look back and reflect, uh, people really respect those leaders or those managers who lead by example. You know,
Right.
you expect others to come at 9 in the office or be sharp 2 minutes before the meeting time virtually, and you are not there, and once, twice. But if this is what your credibility is, take it from me, you won't be respected.
Right.
Mm.
So teams
That's a
really
valid,
follow
that's a
that,
good point.
and also present the pain points of your team in those segments where it really matters, when you're giving your engagement surveys or giving feedback, or you're taking feedback. Again, we all talk about this feedback. Some of these high performing mid-level managers or very effective managers, they are very, very cautious about what is the feedback coming from the team, from the peers, because that's not where you have a direct authority, right? And handling those relationships where you don't have a direct authority and influencing those people, which is like multi-matrix organizations or matrix organizations, multi-geographies. That's, again, it's a huge skill to have, and you can definitely build it over a period of time. Seek mentorship. Again, that's very important. You coach your team and you also seek mentorship. That's how you will develop. And don't be busy all the time. That's another thing, we advise
Mm.
managers that don't sound busy. Don't sound overwhelmed. Even if you are, manage your time proactively. That's the
Correct.
most
Yeah.
democratic resource, time,
Right.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So be on
Yeah.
top of your time. So I'll summarize with that. So
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah, Abhishek, yeah, quick thoughts from you.
No, thank you. Thank you. I think these are very relevant points. So I'd just like to say that, yeah, there are two ways of building personal brand. One is creating an outside perception, which will not last for long. Second is, inside out, so what is it that who you are and how, what works for you, and just, consciously applying yourself in various dimensions in the organization. So one fundamental thing which remains common is I also completely agree that you'll have to consistently deliver results. If you are not delivering results, no matter what you try to portray, that will not make things very relevant. It will Your personal brand will die very, very soon. Second, thinking about two aspects. Initiative for today and initiatives for tomorrow. So, like Sarika said, there don't be really busy, and I completely agree with that, because they are too much consumed in daily operations, day to day operations. They are not able to think about tomorrow. So, therefore, thinking about initiative which will help them do something tomorrow, and trying to show intentions. So many times you don't get opportunity to uh, s- take up roles which you are aspiring for, and by the time you are ready for those roles, you feel that okay, you're not fit, and you're not fit because of certain reasons which could have been in your control. So therefore, many times it makes sense. So for example, it's a lot of people who upgrade their skill set regularly, and even if they do not have experience of that specific field, and they want to take up senior leadership roles, I've seen organizations consider them, provided they have shown some kind of intentions, and there is some visible proof about that those intentions. So for example, let's say upgrading skills, maybe taking cross functional projects. So these are all methodologies which can be used to increase your personal brand, so that it helps you when you need it more. So it's like, these ways you will be able to build great, authentic personal brand within the organization, and then not by writing absolutely I agree on LinkedIn on every post. That's not the way to build personal brand. That will not
Fantastic.
sustain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. Fantastic. So thank you, Abhishek and Sarika. Sarika, especially I was thrilled to hear that one word from you, which is elevator pitch. Okay, so to our logic, to our audience at large, people may think that elevator pitch is usually used in sales. Of course, sales is a very integral part, but I think elevator pitch is something which should be applicable to every department, whether it's
It
HR or
is.
L&D. Elevator pitch is a pitch. Okay, so that's a great thing, and because in my entire career I never heard elevator pitch from this very HR professional. So thank you so much for making my day. Yes, but summarizing, what the inputs that Tarika, you and Abhishek gave. You spoke about initiative. Here, be proactive. Okay, pick up projects, stretch projects. Okay, if it is within your capacity, not to just show off. As Abhishek rightly said, it's not about your LinkedIn profile, but it's something beyond that. Also equally like the part that Sarika, you use the word busyness. No, busyness in accomplishing urgent things will not lead to, because a very simple thing, we use concepts like 80-20 Pareto principle, but when it comes to application, and you are perpetually busy in doing urgent things, but of course urgent things cannot be eliminated, but then you are losing focus on the most important things, which leads to procrastination. Okay, so I can clearly see things converging and getting beautifully interweaved. So fantastic. I mean, great. So that brings us to Sarika. The next question is to you specifically. What are some of the common misconceptions mid-level leaders have about leadership growth, and how can they shift their mindset for success?
Okay. No, again, that's a very, very relevant questions that mid-level managers have. And when we used to do leadership development programs, and one section of that was dedicated to 2 days of classroom learning or bite-sized virtual learning sessions for mid-level leaders, one of these questions very, very commonly came upside. And I would say there are two things one should really work on in terms of misconception. The first is that if I'm more visible, I have to be doer, I have to know everything. So being that super manager syndrome, that is something which will, as I mentioned earlier, it'll keep you busy all the time in operational tasks. It will not also give that visibility to your team and expertise that they have to leverage that you're not making any such space for them. So this
Mm,
is completely avoidable. You need to know that you don't need to know everything.
mm,
You need to
Yeah.
be able to delegate and believe and trust in your team, leverage their expertise, and don't be a micromanager.
mm,
So that you are able to be freeing up your space and thinking ahead, linking the organizational goal to your team's goal, uh, thinking about creative solutioning, and complex problem if that exists. So the problem solving and decision making will be very good if you are not a micromanager and you're really leveraging your team and ensuring the entire team is getting productive. So the first misconception is you don't need to know it all. You also don't need to be visible all the time. Rather, the solution is delegate, right? And really trust in your team.
right.
And then the second misconception people have is, again, to be able to be successful, I have to have a very good title. I'm not a leader, I'm still a manager.
Mm,
So what do I do? So again, that mindset of victim chooser, you really have to be on top of that situation. Whatever it is, everybody gets challenges. How do you turn challenge into an opportunity is something that only you can control. So having
right.
that mindset, even in a time of crisis, and all of us fail crisis in a smaller or a larger scale, and it's quite especially in today's extrinsic world, it's coming more often than what it used to be, in earlier decade. So I think you have to be very, very sort of in control of your own thinking so that you can balance your own team
Mm,
and support them, having that because they look up to you. So giving
right.
them that support mechanism, ensuring they're not burnt out, and being able to effectively leverage the organizational resources, because you're not the lone manager there, right? You have other support
Correct.
resources, you
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
leader,
Yeah.
so seek
Right.
mentorship. And again, as I said, that result orientation, ensuring the task is completed and asking for more and pitching yourself, being visible. These are some of the very important things, which is not shouldn't be seen as, oh, I'm not networking enough. I don't want to do buttering. That's the common word we use. It's not that. It's like
Uh,
you're representing your team at the right situation. You're asking for more work, which is very good.
Right.
So that's how I summarize it.
Great, great, Sarika. I guess you've made some very, very interesting, very pertinent points. One is necessarily one may not know it all, okay, because that's and accept the fact that yes, one any individual cannot know everything. Okay, so that's one. Second is delegation. You said, but do you also feel that trust plays a major factor here? Because so when I say trust, because eventually, because I heard Abhishek talking about self-awareness, and that to a large extent, and the moment you talk about delegation, okay, there has to be, of course, you can trust a person basis the character and competence. So both has plays a major role. And of course the psychological safety. Okay, now I'm talking about a complete ecosystem, right? So do you
Right.
see that yes, eventually trust is at the core, because the moment it's a two-way you see it becomes a two-way game. I trust my team members, and vice versa. Am I exhibiting those behaviors and skills which a leader is supposed to be exhibiting? It's only then the delegation may happen, and then I can expect. So do you see a point there, Sarika?
So there are tools which are available in case, it's not just a judgment based thing. Sorry. The trust based leadership, that's another topic by itself. But if you really look at,
Exactly, yeah.
when you were hired, I mean, I'm talking about a team member, the person has a job profile, a role profile, and then you have given him or her quarterly goals or 6 month, your
True.
annual goals. And against that, he or she is performing and you're supporting the person. So that's where coaching plays a very important role into these conversations, not just having a performance rating, which is anyway a redundant exercise, annual performance rating exercise. You're
Yeah,
having
yeah, yeah.
performance conversations, you're having check-ins, you know the person knows you, and that's how the trust develops. Now there will be people who will be strong performers and there'll be people who will not be so strong performers for XYZ reason. And as a manager, it's your responsibility to know that, right? So when you're
Sure.
entrusting a task or when you're delegating, of course, there's a delegation matrix tool, and you use that tool. And let's say there's a strong performer who is much better, you will not ensure entire 100% responsibility on that person as is delegated, right? You'll have a
True.
cushion mechanism, or you'll have delegation matrix exercise. There are more people, there are backups and all that. But you have
Absolutely.
to leverage your team. You cannot keep it all by yourself. And then you say, because the whole micromanagement thing doesn't work, the business thing doesn't work,
Doesn't work.
and
Yeah.
you will succeed ahead. I mean, imagine the departmental head not being able to entrust or delegate to his or her 100 people team department. How will it all work? So
Right.
there has to be
Sure.
trust. There has to be very objective sort of delegation mechanism, and there will be mistakes. People will fall behind, and you need to have a mechanism to support them. So
Hmm.
this all works
Yeah.
hand in hand, and it is very much doable. Side.
Right.
Fantastic. So data-centric, objective-driven conversations, fantastic. Great. I mean, so that's the key. Okay, now I guess we have just enough time to pick up another question, which is common. Uh, if you had to give one or two key pieces of advice to mid-level leaders, Abhishek and Sarika, both from your experience and your domain expertise, look, yeah. So let me repeat. If you have to give one or two key pieces of advice to mid-level leaders looking to turn challenges into opportunities, what would they be? Sarika, let's start with you. One or two advices, and Abhishek, then over to you.
I would rather turn the mic to Abhishek this time. I don't want to be the sole
Okay,
speaker.
okay,
No, no, thank
okay,
you, Sarika.
Abhishek.
Thank you, Sai.
Fair enough. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, Sai, I'm really passionate about strength-based leadership, and I've seen impact of strength-based leadership. So, my piece of advice to them will be that they have. So, middle-level leaders are those leaders, Sai, who have done something well, and it is difficult to reach up to middle-level leader in any organization. They would have done a lot of good things in their life, and that's why they are there. So I'll not prescribe them something what not what to do. I mean, so for example, let's say they may have a lot of data points collected over the period of time about their areas of strength and their areas of weaknesses. So this time, my suggestion to all of them will be that, okay, let's look at what is right with you, and let us help you maximize what is right with you. So focus on strengths. Get this data. The simplest data which a middle level leader can get about their team members is their top 5 strengths. And strengths are so they have their team members. They are aware about knowledge level of their team members, skills level of their team members in the team. They are aware of competency of their team. But strengths tell them about intentions of their team members. So my suggestion is that invest in understanding the intentions of your team member, and use a database approach to understand that will have an impact on trust, and you'll be able to create a strength based network within your team, and that will allow that success follows when you align natural strength and talent of people their business needs. So that's a simple piece of advice with whatever limited knowledge I have. I'd like to share with middle level leaders. Sai.
Fantastic, Abhishek. That brings me to I read somewhere that intent counts more than technique. This is usually taught to all the salespeople, that you demonstrate your intent, and that too explicitly. So through strength-based leadership, if you say that yes, if you understand the intentions of your team members, I mean, then it becomes relatively easy for you to people will start accepting the way you are. Is what I understood, and then your delegation will become really effective, and which eventually will translate into seamless execution. Perfect, Abhishek. Thank you so much for elucidating that very, very beautifully. Yeah, Sarika, next, your pieces of advice.
Thank you. I think very important to be consistently giving the best results. So execution, keep on doing great on execution. Keep doing well on your people management, very, very important. And then it's very important to ask for more because you're already doing very good on these two factors. So how do you grow further? How can you add more value? And at the same time, I always tell this, to my audience, internal or external, you have to be great on the fundamentals, on the basics. So ethical leadership, being authentic, everybody is a leader. If you're really, even you're managing self, you're leading yourself, the way you come across, what you do,
Yeah.
when nobody's looking at you, when there are no cameras around you, that's equally important as when people are looking at you.
Lovely.
So
Yeah,
perception as well as what you really believe in, and how do you execute it, there has to be no one better than you. That's the sort of approach you should go with. So fundamentals, really, really integrity, 100%, ready to give your best, and then seek advice, seek mentorship. Don't
Yeah.
hesitate, because you're not supposed to know everything all the time 100%. You will make mistakes, and that's fine. So
lovely.
that's
Yeah.
from me. Thanks.
So authentic leadership, ethical leadership, you're not really camouflaging yourself, you're not masquerading. Okay, you are what you are. As they say that what you do is not important, but who you are. Okay, when as they say, candid photography, when you're not really looking at the camera and giving your best pose. Okay. So it's like that, the analogy I can think of that, Sarika. Fantastic point. So Abhishek and Sarika, great. I mean, lot of key takeaways. In fact, I'm going to prepare my notes. There's an entire script now ready with us, and I'm sure our audience would have learned and really enjoyed this insightful conversation. Now, just to sum up, due to paucity of time, otherwise I would have loved this conversation to go on for some more time. But then, yes. So as we wrap up today's discussion, it's evident that middle-level leadership is vital for organization success. Okay, so thank you once again, Sarika and Abhishek, for your invaluable insights on navigating challenges and seizing opportunities. Okay, and to our audience, thank you very much for joining us. We hope you must have found this session extremely inspiring in terms of the learning shared today about empowering your mid-level leaders to drive impact and foster a culture of collaboration. Okay, so let's continue to support the development as they shape the future of our organizations. Okay, now please keep watch out this space. Stay tuned for our next podcast episode. Till then, take care and stay blessed. See you soon. See you all very, very soon. Thank you
Thank you
once
so
again.
much, everyone. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Sai.
All
Thank you,
the best. All
Sarika.
the best, Abhishek
Thanks,
and Sarika.
everyone.
And once again, thank you very much. Yeah.